Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Studio. My name is Adam, and it's time for another Top 10. And thank you so much to my studio VIPs, Luke Uemura and Leo Palacios. Thank you so much for joining the team, Leo. And today's featured studio artist is Patrick Gelvin. Thank you for joining the team, Patrick. And if you'd like to become a studio artist or studio VIP, you can go to patreon.com/Adam10, or you can click over here. Welcome to yet another top 10 video. We haven't had any other top 10 videos other than my top 10 favorite marimba solos, which is still my most viewed video on this channel. You can check it out in the description below. And with the release of my new piece, which was written for 5 octave marimba, a lot of you guys have been asking me to recommend pieces for 4 1/3 octave marimba. And even though the 4 1/3 octave marimba is more regularly seen in high school or in a practice room or as a beginner instrument, it still has a very diverse range of repertoire. Like, not all 4 1/3 octave marimba music is beginner etudes and technical exercises. There's actually quite a lot of really advanced repertoire for 4 1/3 octave marimba. So not only will today's top 10 video be completely for 4 1/3 octave marimba only, it will also cover a range of difficulties from very easy all the way to more difficult pieces, and every single one of them will be 4 mallet solos. Now, of course, before I continue, this list just consists of my personal favorites. Your favorites might be different, so if you have any other recommendations for 4 1/3 octave marimba, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to check them out. And also, one more thing, I would like to get out some of the more obvious choices of repertoire out of the way. For example, the Rain Twins, which is of course Yellow After the Rain by Mitchell Peters and Rain Dance by Alice Gomez. I've played Rain Dance before myself, and these are all great pieces, I know that, but everyone already knows them, so I don't think it's really necessary for them to be on the list. So an honorable mention to the Rain Twins. Another honorable mention goes to White Knuckle Stroll. Now, I know I said this list is meant to be for 4 mallet repertoire, but every time a discussion is made about 4 1/3 octave marimba, there's always White Knuckle Stroll somewhere there. So third honorable mention goes to pretty much any Bach violin solo that goes on 4 1/3 octave marimba. We all know about Bach, we know it exists as well. I've played a lot of Bach and I think it's great, so I don't need to mention that in the top 10 either. And the fourth and final honorable mention goes to the Creston Concertino for marimba and orchestra. And for obvious reasons, this is a concerto, it's not an unaccompanied work, so I didn't put it in the top 10 list. But it is a great concerto for 4 1/3 octave marimba. It's one of the originals. In fact, it's the very first piece written for solo marimba, so go check it out if you haven't already. Okay, with all the formalities and honorable mentions out of the way, let's get into our top 10 list. Woo! At number 10, we have one of the staples of 4 1/3 octave marimba. It's Rotation 2 by Eric Samu. Now, Eric Samu wrote 4 rotations, and every single one of them is written for 4 1/3 octave marimba, but I believe 1 and 2 are the more popular ones. 2 is definitely one I've heard a lot. It's really pretty. It's just something really smooth and elegant, and it really gets you to focus on the voicings on the marimba, which is something that you would like to develop early when you're learning marimba. I love Eric's work. I love Chameleon. I love Libertango. I love all of the rotations. So I think this is a really great work if you're looking for something that is a little bit more melodic and allows you to explore voicing on the 4 1/3 octave marimba. Rotation 2, I would say, is definitely in the land sort of category of difficulty. So I would say between the higher level of high school and maybe the beginning of college/university. At number 9, we have a solo that is very popular. It's deceptively simple. It's Ghost Garden by Adam Hopper. Ghost Garden is a deceptively simple piece. Like, the patterns are very predictable and the whole thing sounds very simple. You know, it's just very simple rotations and things like that. And honestly, I really like it when people can play something like Ghost Garden really pretty and with some solid imagery, as opposed to someone who can play something super choppy but bland. Ghost Garden is definitely more of a beginner piece. I would say it's more of a Rain Dance, Yellow After the Rain kind of vibe. So if you're looking for something to build up your 4 mallet chops and you're relatively new to the instrument, this could be ideal for you. At number 8, we have a piece from someone who I consider to be responsible for the pop music style of marimba. That is, marimba music that sounds like something you hear on the radio and is like a good blend between that and classical music. His name is Ivan Trevino and the piece is called Strive to Be Happy. Now, I know a lot of you guys who are watching are Ivan Trevino fans. I mean, who isn't? And a lot of Ivan Trevino's stuff like Anthem and Catching Shadows, these are all very groove-based pieces. They all have very nice fat chords. They have a very rolling sort of bass line pattern going. And the way that he's managed to transport that sort of style from pieces like Anthem, which are for full 5-octave marimbas with a big fat bass line and a nice top line, to the smaller 4 1/3 octave marimba is just amazing. Strive to Be Happy definitely is quite chordal. It's got that whole guitar chord sort of feel. It's very pattern based, and as a result, you really need to be confident with your technique to be able to pull a lot of these lines off. And I would recommend it for someone who is more towards the higher end of high school or almost the beginning of university, or just someone who would like to play something that is groovy but also very meaningful. It's one of my favorite Ivan Trevino pieces, and I think the title combined with the piece really expresses a lot, so thank you, Ivan, for writing this piece. At number 7, we have a piece that was only premiered this year. It is brand new, it is hot. I know a lot of people who are playing it right now. It is Prelude in G minor by Pius Cheng. I talk a lot about Pius Cheng on this channel. I mentioned his Etude in E minor a lot because I played it last year, and I really like the way Pius writes. You know, he writes like piano style marimba solos. A lot of that sort of Chopin, Rachmaninoff influence really resonates in his music, and this Prelude is no exception. But what I really marvel at is how he's managed to fit all these kinds of patterns on a 4 1/3 octave marimba. I think this Prelude is really clever. It's a bit wistful and a bit cheeky, and it's just a lot of color, and I really like that. But this is not an easy piece at all. I would say it's definitely towards the same level as Etude in E minor. I would say it's a solid intermediate piece, so maybe for someone who's in college or someone who is really good in high school. But a really awesome piece nonetheless. At number 6, we have a piece that I played myself in my second year of undergraduate. It's pretty popular in Australia because it's an Australian work. It's Marimba Dances by Ross Edwards. Team Australia! So Ross Edwards is one of the most well-known Australian composers we have at the moment, and Marimba Dances is definitely very reflective of his compositional style. There's a lot of that cricket vibe. And when I say cricket, I don't mean the sport, I mean like actual insect crickets. I don't know, if you listen to any of Ross Edwards' music, you will know exactly what I mean. And Marimba Dances is no exception. I played all 3 movements of it back in undergraduate in my university degree, and it's so much fun. First movement is a 2-mallet movement. It's very jumpy, it moves between intervals very quickly, so I think that's a pretty good training exercise. It's very sprightly, very jumpy, definitely has the dance vibe about it, and it's a lot of fun. The second movement is more spatial, and it's really good for training you for more non-moto perpetuo pieces, because all beginner marimba pieces tend to be moto perpetuo. They tend to be just like straight through pattern. I got broads in Atlanta. Marimba Dances movement 2 kind of taught me to leave space between things and to appreciate silence and other sort of concepts that are similar to that. And finally, the third movement is with 4 mallets, and it is pretty tricky. There's a lot of double vertical strokes in there, very close intervals. I think overall Marimba Dances has basically the whole Sizzler salad bar. Marimba Dances, I wouldn't say is an absolute beginner piece because there are more complex things other than technique that you have to deal with, like leaving space and all that kind of stuff. So I would recommend it to people who are maybe really good in high school, or people who are just starting at college/university. I think marimba dances would be good for that. At number 5, we have one of the harder pieces on this list. It is Polaris by Mark Ford. So Polaris, I would say, is like baby velocities. It definitely goes pretty much non-stop from start to finish. And there are some small gaps in the middle, there are some quiet bits, but it does require you to be quite physical with the marimba, and it's all on the 4 1/3 octave marimba, which I think is just fantastic. Like, can you imagine maybe if we were in the 1930s or 40s or even 50s and having music like Polaris? No way. I think Mark Ford has done a really great job at putting such a massive amount of notes on such a small instrument and making it sound really impressive. Like, it sounds really good. It doesn't sound tacky at all. It doesn't sound like you've just, you know, a lot of pieces that are really virtuosic and they're just literally like a cereal box of notes, like you're pouring the cereal and it's like and it's just like senseless mush. But Polaris is not that. Polaris is definitely something that I would love to play one day. I would say Polaris is very suitable for a high school student, that is a high school student looking for a challenge, because it is definitely not an easy piece. It goes along pretty quickly. So yeah, worth checking out. At number 4, we have another piece that I've played before. It is, of course, 2 Mexican Dances by Gordon Stout. So I played Mexican dances back in my first year of undergraduate, and I found it really, really hard, like super hard, because the melody is not in the right hand, it's in the left hand, and it's in octaves. And it has to sound perfect because it sounds so easy to the point where if the audience is watching and you miss one note, they're like, "That's not the melody, mate!" It's really a challenge to hold the fort, if you like. So I think it's a fantastic piece for working on your laterals, as well as your overall 4 mallet speed and looseness. I would recommend Mexican dances for someone who is in the first year of university, or if you really, really want to try it in high school, it might be worth a go, but it's definitely something that is more towards the college vibe, because there are some very complex things in there that you have to think about as well. At number 3, I have a piece that I heard my friend Peyton play. Peyton, if you're watching this, you did an awesome rendition of this at Chosen Vale last year. It is, of course, a Becker. So as the name suggests, a Becker is a rondo form piece. There is an A theme that comes back all the time. It's a very pretty theme. It comes back in many different forms, including this very, very pretty chorale in the middle. And honestly, I had no idea this piece was written for 4 1/3 octave marimba. It sounds like a 5 octave marimba piece. Like, if you play this on a 5 octave marimba, I would totally forget that it's a 4 1/3 octave marimba piece. It is that good. This to me is actually a piece that I would consider to be a concert piece, not just like a piece that you play for a technical exercise or for examination purposes or for juries or whatever, auditions. No, it's actually like a proper concert piece, except it's on 4 1/3 octave marimba, which is just awesome. I think any university student could handle a Becker, as well as a really, really good high school student. Peyton was that very good high school student back in 2016. So another shout out to you, Peyton, and I love the piece. At number 2 is a piece that I've been wanting to play for a long, long time, and it is for 4 1/3 octave marimba. It is none other than the Etude in C major by Claire Omar Musa. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with your marimba history, and Musa is basically the man, the myth, the legend. Like, he created the instrument, he created marimba as we know it today. He's also responsible for things like Musa grip, and honestly, this solo exemplifies why I love everything about Claire Omar Musa. It's a very exciting 4-mallet solo. It's very short, it's only 2 minutes long. It has a lot of vaudeville influence, it has a lot of classical music influence. Like, it's old school, like proper marimba old school. And honestly, it is just as enjoyable to listen to as it is to play, which is not something I can always say for very technical, chop-heavy marimba solos like this one, but this is just like something really fun. It's literally like the 4-mallet version of George Hamilton Green xylophone rags. And I think if you're looking for a chop builder that won't take you too much time to learn, I think the Musa Etude is the one. And this one, definitely any high school student could do this, definitely anyone in university could do this. It's a real broad exercise type work, anyone can do it, and I would love to try it myself very soon. And finally, we've come to number 1 on this list, and can I just say that this piece, to me, is the most different on this list. It is Frogs by Keiko Abe. How can you not love that? Frogs is one of the most clever marimba solos ever written because it is just so different. You know, like with the flams, the compound time, and the that is something that is very rare in marimba music. That sort of style, that sort of pattern, that sort of lightness and fun and quirk. Just like the Musa Etude, this piece to me has a real old school feel about it. It doesn't have any sort of pop influence. It doesn't have any sort of rock influence. It is just pure and clean classical music with a little bit of that traditional feel. I don't know how to explain it. Not to mention that it is actually also a very challenging piece to play. Out of all the Keiko Abe solos that people recommend for 4 1/3 octave like Prism and Nietzsche, I would say Frogs is one of the most challenging ones. Not just because of the technique required to play those flams and to get it all accurate, but also the style. Like, if it sounds too clunky, if it sounds too heavy, it doesn't have that character, then it's not Frogs, it's Wales or Studio Seal of Approval. Seriously, Frogs is one of my bucket list pieces. It is not an easy piece. I wouldn't give it to someone who's in their first year of learning marimba. Maybe someone who's a little bit more confident with 4-mallet. I'd say maybe between the very high school level to about the second year of university. So yeah, right now Frogs is my favorite marimba solo for 4 1/3 octave marimba. Let me know what your favorite 4 1/3 octave marimba solo is in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. I think the repertoire on this list taught me a few things. Firstly, simple is not necessarily a bad thing. For example, Ghost Garden is a very simple piece, but when it's played well, it sounds fantastic. And secondly, it taught me to never underestimate the power of a 4 1/3 octave marimba. Everyone seems to think of the 4 1/3 octave marimba as the lesser marimba, the one that is just used for practice and nothing more. But when you've got such virtuosic works written for 4 1/3 octave marimba, I think it's still a serious instrument. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more top 10 content or any other sort of content on this channel, please leave me a comment in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. And thank you to everyone who has bought my new piece, Path, for solo marimba. Seriously, I did not expect more than maybe 5 people to buy this piece, but now we've sold about 4 or 5 times that amount, so thank you so much to everyone for supporting my first compositional debut. I have never composed for marimba before, and I didn't expect that many people to like it. If you'd like to get a copy of Path for yourself, you can get it at adamtanpercussion.com/download. You can click over here, or it's in the description below. And finally, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please click that red subscribe button below to keep up with my uploads, and make sure you turn notifications on so that you know when I'm uploading things. I know a lot of you guys hashtag notification squad. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. Thank you so much for buying my piece. Thank you so much for watching the show, and I will see you next week for another episode of The Studio. Good night.
I'd like to love you every day. I'd like to love you, love you.